I lived in Norway for many years, and with my husband, my Norwegian husband, and when we divorced, I gave him my half of the business so I could bring the children back to the United States with me, so he signed off. But part of our agreement was that every single year they would go back to Norway and spend a month with them. So when they were little, I would always travel with them. But when they got older, in their teen years, they traveled alone. And this was so hard for me because by then, Kurt, my ex-husband, had moved to Mo i Rana. And Mo i Rana is 45 minutes from the beginning of the Arctic Circle. So they had to take 5 planes to get to see their dad. So, and it took basically 2 days for them to get. So I was a nervous wreck before they would leave. Just a nervous wreck. And so, the day before they leave, every summer, I would rent the 2006 thriller Taken. So for those of you who aren't familiar with that movie, this is a movie that stars Liam Neeson, and Liam Neeson plays a character, Brian Mills, who is an ex-CIA agent with a particular set of skills. And in this movie, his daughter and a friend, they just turned 18, they fly to Europe and they talk to strangers and they are kidnapped by a sex trafficking ring. It is the worst possible scenario. It's a really difficult movie to watch. So I would force my kids to watch this the day before they would leave. And so when it came to the point that Brian Mills was just about to save his daughter, I would put the DVD on pause. And I would stand in front of the television and I would say, does this look like the body of a person who can jump off a bridge onto a moving yacht and kill 23 men armed with machetes and machine guns? I do not have that particular set of skills. So don't talk to strangers. And then I'd say, and when you travel overseas, your passport is the most important thing you own. It's more important than your wallet. It's more important than your airplane ticket. It's more important than your virginity. Do not lose your passport. And the girls, of course, would roll their eyes because they're teens and they know everything, right? And they'd say, Mom, we know, we're not stupid. So the girls had been visiting their dad one summer, and I was in Mitchell, South Dakota, and it was my last day of freedom, so I'm hanging out at Walgreens because I love the aisle that has the As Seen on TV stuff. So that night they were going to be in the Oslo airport. They would stay overnight because it's a 2-day trip, and then they would be home the next day. So I'm hanging out in Walgreens as Seen on TV stuff. And I'll tell you why I like it. I like it because it's so obnoxious. I mean, the stuff there, it just cracks me up. Like the packaging alone is funny. Like one item was called the Slinkies. And it says on the outside of the package, use this clear adhesive tape to strap back your flabby upper arms. And then it says, warning, may cause excessive compliments and a supermodel attitude. Because ladies, what makes us feel better than having to tape back our upper arm? That is an all-around great feeling, right? And this other product is called the Better Marriage Blanket. And on the outside it says, this blanket is made out of the same materials the U.S. military uses to protect against chemical warfare. It will now protect you against spousal flatulence. Is that pathetic? Is it pathetic? So I'm looking at these items and I'm laughing and my cell phone rings. I answer my cell phone. And it's my youngest daughter, Sophie. And she says, Mom, we made it to the Oslo airport. But Mom, Christine lost her passport. And right there, my heart just dropped between the Flowbee vacuum hair cutter and the Better Marriage blanket, because I knew they were on the last flight into Oslo. And I knew that airport closes at midnight. And they were on the first flight out in the morning. And no passport. So immediately I start thinking of what I have to do, and I'm thinking, okay, where are the documents? I'll have to send those to the embassy, I can fax those. And which friends will I call, because we lived in Norway for years, and who will come and pick up my girls so they can stay there until we get this thing figured out. And suddenly, you know what? It occurred to me. I do have a particular set of skills, because I'm a parent, and I fix things. But the truth is, I couldn't fix this. I couldn't. Because I was standing in Walgreens on the corner of Havens and Burr in Mitchell, South Dakota, and they were at the Gardermoen Airport in Norway. So I said to Sophie, it's going to be okay. This isn't life or death. We will figure this out. Just let me know if anything happens. She finds her passport. Just let me know what's going on. Call me back. And I said, I love you. I hung up the phone. And that is the moment that I came up with this mental tool that you have a copy of on your table. And it's called the fix. Because right there, in between a claw hammer and the cat litter, I found this picture level. There you go. I found a picture level. And you know, this is used so that you make sure your shelf is level or your picture is level. And what I realized is this is how life is, you know? Things come at you, and you got to get your bubble back in the middle and level things out so you can move forward. So this is a mental tool I use to counterbalance anger, anxiety, feelings of stress, and I'll go through it really briefly with you today. But you have a copy. This helps me all the time. I use this constantly. I hope this is beneficial to you. So the first part is to identify the feeling that you're having. So when you name it, it minimizes it almost immediately. So if you can just in your head saying, in this moment, in that particular moment, I was feeling anxiety. Name what you are feeling. And immediately you'll feel it diminish just a little bit. So the second is to figure out which level you're at. And so a level 4 is a death or a trauma. And this is not manageable, it's not contained, it just takes time to get over. A level 3 is an everyday stressor. So everyday stressors are things like you find out that your son is flunking math, right? Or maybe you have a bad cold, but you know that you'll get over the cold. It's something that's manageable and it's contained. It's not fun, you don't like it, but you can do something about it. A level 2 is an everyday activity. An everyday activity. So here's the truth is you go to work and you're busy and you don't go home to paradise, right? You go home to more stuff you have to do. You've got to get groceries, you got to figure out what's for dinner, you got to haul your kids around, get the oil changed, you got to swish out the toilet every few days or so, right? There's stuff to do. Sometimes these everyday activities can be overwhelming. So is it a level 2 or is it a level 1? A level 1 is Starbucks gets your coffee order wrong, right? Or, I mean, you go to the grocery store and there's a big line and only one aisle open. Or my husband Steve hates it. He gets red lights. So if he gets several red lights in a row, he feels like the universe is working against him. And he gets really irritated. So this is just an irritant. So decide what level this is. Step away from it, decide what level you're at. In my case, with the lost passport, it was a level 3. It was contained. There was something we could do about it. They weren't going to have to live in Norway forever. And the last thing is ACT. And ACT stands for Appreciate, Compassion, and Truth. Ask yourself, in this moment, what can I appreciate? So in that moment, I could appreciate that they were in Norway because we all speak Norwegian. And I had friends there. And I could appreciate that they had cell phones so they could keep in touch with me, right? The compassion, of course I was irritated. I was very irritated that Christine, my oldest daughter, had lost her passport, but I could have compassion because I knew she was nervous about it. And the truth was, I could only do so much. I mean, I'm in Mitchell, South Dakota, and they're in Norway. So I had to wait for things to play out. So I got my bubble back in the middle. And I left Walgreens with only one item from the as seen on TV aisle. And this one item is called a wine yoke. And on the outside it says, enjoy this hands-free wine drinking experience. And it said, a rubber holder gently cradles your wine glass and hangs with a lanyard around your neck. And I thought that could come in really handy. So I'm calling and calling. I don't hear from my kids. I get home, I'm calling. About an hour and a half later, my kids finally pick up. And it's my oldest daughter, Christine. And she picks up, she answers the phone, she's like, oh, we were jumping on the bed, sorry. Oh, so much fun. And I'm like, so what happened? And she says, what? And I said, Christine, what happened with your passport? And she said, oh, that. Yeah, no, we found this guy in the airport, and he was nice enough to go open the hangar, and he opened up the airplane, and sure enough, my passport was right there in the pocket at my seat. And I'm like, huh. Big lesson learned, right? And she said, what? And I said, big lesson learned with that passport, right? And she said, oh, Ma, wasn't that big of a deal? It all worked out. Okay, bye, love you. And she hung up. And I just strapped on that wine yoke. This is honestly something I use all the time. So really keep it with you because it really works for me. It gives you some distance so you can see how difficult this problem is so you don't overreact.